I wish that I had something appropriately insane and Shakespearean to say as my entry, but I don't. So
Oh well, what can you
Yeah,
do?
I've read it all, but I don't remember. I don't retain lines all that well. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
We've shifted over to an ice
Same.
planet here now, so I turned on my heater like 30 minutes before we start recording. Uh,
Oh
Oh, it's like
man.
75 here outside.
okay, we have a
Whoa.
very different temperature going on then.
But John, are you on the West Coast or are you
I'm in Alabama today, and it's
cool.
getting cooler. It's not cold, like not a heavy winter, but like low 60s. So it's kind of chill. It's overcast all day. Leaves are falling off the trees. Yeah, yeah,
No, I got
nice.
straight up freezing today.
Sorry about that.
That's what
We're
happens
very
when
close
you
to summer here.
live in mountains. Yeah. um so Mark, you say you got your notes on your hand, written on your
Yeah, I'm gonna
hand.
have to send you the summary later again. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's fine. Just we'll leave a 5 minute, my 5 minute silence. Yes, 5 second silence.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. I don't know. Let's go ahead and run this then.
All right. Welcome to Podcast 1999, the podcast about Space 1999. I'm your host, Mark, and
This
here's
is
Matt.
the fool of knowledge. Sorry, I was trying to go with the Shakespearean that our guest today said he was going to come in with and couldn't. So I thought I'd just give it the old college try. But joining us for the Mission Log podcast today is John Champion. Welcome back.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be back on Moonbase Alpha.
And I think I called this episode incorrectly. Death's other domain on the last episode. The dragon has a
Yeah,
domain. Death has a
yeah, you started
dominion. I've
making
worked that
Dragon's
out now.
Domain. Yes.
Dragon
Yes.
gets the domain. It's cutting hair, splitting hairs a bit, but what can you do?
Yes. It's
well.
Dragon Death's Domain Dominion.
Mm.
That's the mashup we've all been waiting for.
The
I'll get
mnemonic
back to you about
device.
what death rates higher. This one, without spoiling too highly,
Oh.
has a notable one.
Yeah.
Um, hey, Mark, did you have the trivia for us?
I do have the trivia for you, and it
Okay.
is I'm juggling windows here. Okay, today's episode was the 14th in production order. Charles Crichton is back to direct again. You last saw his work on The Last Sunset. He'll be back for 3 more this season. Anthony Terpiloff and Elizabeth Barrows are back as co-writers with Jerry Anderson. You last saw them last week on Collision Course, or you last saw their work, rather. They'll be back together for 1 more episode this season, and then Anthony will be back without Elizabeth for one in season 2. I don't know if their marriage went the same way as the Andersons did, but maybe I can look that up later.
Shows a gauntlet for one's marriage, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. The script was inspired by an Oscar-winning Frank Capra film from 1937 called Lost Horizon. And model builder Martin Bauer used the spaceship from 1951's When Worlds Collide for the design of the as inspiration for the design of the unfinished Phoenix. If you're wondering, that film also won an Oscar, but not as many Oscars. This episode was almost scrapped because the fumes for the ice cave set were so noxious that Martin Landau refused to work in it, and then the soap used for the fake snow almost took the skin off of his face. That's probably hyperbole, but maybe it took some skin off of his face. The episode's title comes from a 1936 poem from Dylan Thomas, "And death shall have no dominion," which was a reference itself to a biblical line, "Knowing that Christ, being raised from the dead, dieth no more, death hath no more dominion over him." The name Ultima Thule comes from Greek and Latin and refers to basically the furthest location away beyond the known world. A celestial object was actually given the name Ultima Thule in 2019 after being discovered by the New Horizons spacecraft, but it was changed after an article criticized it for being associated with a mythological home of the Aryan race. Anyway, this is the only episode in the entire series where the cold open has any characters other than the moon base Alphans, and it is a very cold open. Anyway, our main guest stars this week include Brian Blessed as Dr. Cabot Rowland. Born in 1936 in South Yorkshire, his father was a miner who wanted a better life for Brian after Brian lost 3 uncles in the pit. He displayed an aptitude for both acting and boxing, but the boxing didn't really stick. His acting career included many Shakespeare adaptations, surprisingly, not unsurprisingly, but more relevant to this topic, he appeared in Flash Gordon as Prince Volton, several series of Blackadder as multiple Kings Richard, and as in Star Wars Episode 1 as the voice of Boss Nass. I think that was one of the Trade Federation guys. I'm not really sure.
That's right.
Or maybe he was a pod racing boss. I don't know. I've only seen it once. He's still working even today doing voices for animated series and even video games. Many episodes of Peppa Pig. Anyway, Captain Jack Tanner is played by John Shrapnel. He was born in Birmingham in 1942 and unsurprisingly also has a history with Shakespeare, having worked extensively in theater at the Royal Shakespeare Company and National Theatre in London. His screen credits also include many Shakespeare adaptations, but you can also see him in The Tom Machine, The Deliberate Death of a Polish Priest, and How to Get Ahead in Advertising. He passed away in 2020, but his final work came out this year, 2023, a modern version of Hamlet called Hamlet Within. He plays opposite Sir Ian McKellen. And finally,
Can I just chime in really quickly? Sorry to interrupt. That if I was not named John Champion, I would want a name as cool as John Shrapnel.
He almost sounds like your arch nemesis. Like you guys
oh my God, it does.
Right?
And we're both from Birmingham, so
yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Not that one. The other one. The other one.
The other one. Yeah.
Have you done Shakespeare?
I have actually done a little bit of Shakespeare. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, all right. That's it. I expect a comic book series and film adaptation of this story.
Yeah. All right. And as far as our main guest stars, the last is Mary Miller as Frida. I think it was Frida. It was Frida. One of those. She was born in 1929 in Gorleston on the Sea in Norfolk, England. That's a much more English. That's definitely not. There's not one of those in Alabama for sure. She also passed. Yeah, she passed away in 2020. Also, her background was also in theater, not quite as Shakespeare-y, but she was a founding member of the National Theatre Company in 1963. Most of her screen credits are in British television and works such as Nightmare with a K, Marty Amok, and The Befrienders. That's trivia.
All right.
I do want to give a shout out to one other guest star. That would be Valerie Leon, who later shows up in a couple of Bond movies, and I believe she did a bunch of Hammer horror, and she's awesome. So
nice.
Yeah, there you go. And gorgeous. So yeah,
I guess it's a few Hammer
being on this podcast. I barely finished the trivia in time. But yeah, it was very nice to see enough extras to make this feel like a fully fleshed out place, which we've gotten, I think, maybe one time so far in this show, maybe twice.
They kept coming. That was pretty impressive that they just kept showing up, and we spend very little time on Moonbase Alpha. So it's like, if you're not blowing the budget there and you have this huge ice cave set, then yeah, bring in the extras and spend a little money on costumes, or those weird like animal cloths that they have. So yeah, that was nice. And I at first I thought, okay, it's just going to be this handful of people, but no, then there's another group of people to go out as a search party, and then another group of people who are just hanging out, and then another group of people who are lobotomized. So yeah, they kept layering it.
Yeah, this feels like kind of a different show. I don't want to insult the show that it usually is, but this feels more fleshed out than almost anything. This spoiler, this is my new favorite episode of the show because it rules. I mean, it has for different reasons than The Last Sunset was my favorite episode until now.
Wow, nice.
If you want to hear Mark hate on things, go to last week's Collision course, which Mark did not like.
Yeah, that was not a candidate. Strange, same writers, which is wild, because this feels like such a more fleshed out thing that the writing was the problem with that episode, and really nothing else.
Interesting.
Let's
I'm going to save my final judgment until the end.
Sure.
All right.
let's have a moment of silence for the story.
It was beautiful. I hope everybody was as touched as I was.
Now, John, I'm guessing you're here because you chose a few episodes. You're here for the Blessed, is it? Are you here for the
I'm feeling completely blessed, and just getting hit with blessed shrapnel all over this episode. It really, like, look, when you have an actor like Brian Blessed on screen who is just devouring scenery at an unhealthy rate, you've got to be able to fill that in with ways to actually take some focus every now and then to your other actors. And the John Shrapnel as Jack is terrific. I can understand where some viewers might find his shtick irritating and a bit over the top, but I actually think it serves the story very well. And to have really heightened characters like those, and the sort of, you know, little bits of not jump scare. We get one jump scare at the end, but the little bits of like creepy, odd horror floating in the background of this episode. I think everything is balanced very nicely. Our alpha characters, by design, are usually pretty mellow. They're pretty, like, they keep everything pretty grounded. Like, obviously Martin Landau and Barbara Bain are just playing the truth of the moment. I think the one who succeeds best with that, as always is Barry Morse as Victor Bergman. He grounds everything, but they're so grounded that I think they, again, serve a very nice contrast to what Brian Blessed is doing, just taking up all the air in the room. And I say that in the best possible way, because he's a delight. He's a national treasure.
Yeah, just for contrast,
Absolutely.
when we did the last Sunset a few weeks ago, and, you know, Paul Morrow comes completely out of the box and goes over the top. So it's kind of like, yeah, these actors can do that. That's just the vibe of the show, that they don't do that.
Because it's, and I think we talked about this, where it's Office in space. You know, you have to be sold on the reality, because you have this nuts premise that does not hold up to any scrutiny at all. So then you are relying on everybody on Alpha to be as, like, normal and relatable and kind of boring. But I think that boringness works in a really effective way, that they have to be that way almost, so that then they are our proxy for all the weird things that happen around them.
Yeah, in that case, the mushrooms have to make Ball into the weird thing.
Yep, exactly.
And then everyone laughs and it resets. But in this, I agree with you completely that not only is Brian Blessed doing a great job chewing scenery, but I love that his character is never, I feel like the story never hits you over the head with this guy is evil. Like, he never, his manipulations are very, very subtle. And then you find out that Jack Tanner actually has a reason for being insane, which is directly tied to him. So that's incredible that you get that much of a story arc with this relationship between these two guest characters that runs through this episode. We just haven't gotten that in the series at all. Like,
and I thought there was something else really nice there, where yes, Brian Blessed is the bad guy. He is the one who is manipulating everybody else. But I think there's this really subtle thing between him and Jack, where there's almost like this guilt and or protectiveness over Jack that comes across really nicely. It's like he has gone so far and completely subverted his own humanity when it comes to all these other experiments, but there's still something about Jack that he is protective over, and that all, whether it was intended or not, I think it plays really nicely, gives all of those characters and all of their backstory a bit of depth.
Well, he was the captain of the Uranus mission.
But
they were ejected from Uranus.
Yeah.
Right,
but the point is, Jack is was the leader. So, and now it's
Yeah.
kind of like if on Star Trek, if McCoy had a broken Kirk's mind and had to deal with it, you know?
Which would
Yeah.
be something you would
Yeah.
probably see in maybe in a mirror universe or something like that.
Yeah.
Some way to there are ways that Star Trek plays with the characters, and that's kind of what we get here, and that's great. I've been hungry for something like this. Like, it's so great to not have just the villain of the week shows up and maybe they're good and maybe they're bad, and then they're like, so long. I mean, okay, they did say so long in the end. Well, except for the corpse.
I will
he didn't
go
say
on the
goodbye.
record. You know, Brian Bless, of course, is giving a top-notch performance because he always does. But Mr. Shrapnel, I think, is actually kind of stealing the show a bit. I mean, you know,
Killing
you could
it.
say it's over the top, but he's the Shakespearean fool with that little touch of tragedy because, you know, geez, I got Jack Tanner. I just kept writing Brian Blessed in my notes. I didn't even get the guy's name.
Yeah. Dr. Roland. I had to remind myself. Dr. Roland. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you have a name like his, why even have a
Yeah.
character name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, you're right. And John Shrapnel is so strong in that role, and it is so weird. So unless you have an actor who can totally commit to that, and it's not just the moments where he's spouting off these quasi Shakespearean lines, it's these other moments where he looks truly disturbed, you know, that he actually is very much in the moment for this character's very broken psyche. So that's not an easy thing to pull off, because you could just put a lesser actor in that role and say, oh no, he's lost his mind. But this guy has lost his mind in a way that you are still hanging on to every word, because you know that there's truth in everything that he's saying. And that is certainly a credit to the writers here for what they were able to pull off.
Of course, they tie in just a bit of that Space 1999 metaphysics by being like, oh, he also has like weird psychic abilities, which I think that's fun. I don't know.
He
probably
can do
not
voiceovers.
necessary.
He has the power to do voiceovers.
Yeah. Well, and I do feel like that, though, is one of the weakest points in the episode, is that there are so many ideas that have been thrown up against the wall here. You've got a lost mission, a lost space probe to Uranus. So that's already interesting anyway. And they predated the events of Space 1999 by 13 years. Then, or this episode by 14 years, as they point out, because they've been out there for a while. Then you've got the time warp, which they literally, I had to go back and rewatch that moment, because like, wait a minute, how did they explain that? No, they didn't. Just Victor Bergman was like, yeah, I asked the computer, it doesn't know, so that all checks out. Yeah, definitely a time warp.
One of us went through a time warp. Could be us.
One
could be
of
them.
us. Yeah. So you've got that, and then you have the immortality, but also the weird psychic draw of the planet itself. Then you've got the fact that we absolutely know that they're going to die if they leave that planet. We know that that's coming, but it's revealed in a great way. So there are all these terrific ideas, but not enough of those fully explored, because there are too many of them. Had this been a 90-minute episode, I think we would have gotten even more depth, because think about the speed with which they go through the whole ethical conflict here of like, yeah, we found this planet, it makes us immortal. Wouldn't you guys like to stay here? No, seriously, I'm going to make you stay here. No, we don't want to stay here. But then you've got Bergman and Russell like, yeah, totally, we want to stay here. Okay, we'll put it up to a vote. Okay, we're going to go back to Alpha and take a vote. I mean, all of that happens. If you just pull those segments of dialogue out, that's about 3 minutes of this episode to really explore this ethical dilemma. I think we needed a little more.
Well, I put in my notes how she's screaming destroy the equipment as she's actually destroying the equipment. There's no like saying and doing. It's all at once. Followed by a wonderful line, death, the greatest medical challenge conceivable. It's
oh my God. Wow.
This episode's all about excess. It's 170 degrees below zero. I mean, it doesn't really need to be 170 degrees below. It could just be 0 degrees, and it would
just be zero.
Very harsh. I think that these characters are sort of written like 800-year-old characters, which is to the show's credit, because I feel like that's usually botched. They do feel like people, but it could have just been, we've been here for 15 years and we haven't aged. That's like that.
Yeah.
That could have solved that very easily.
Right. Right.
But
880 years in a time warp, though. That makes it, wonderfully whack.
But
Yeah, of
remember,
course.
okay, but we got to add all this up. So it was a mission to a very distant point in our own solar system. Like that's a pretty miraculous thing anyway. Okay, so they do that, and they actually got to where they were going. Oh, but wait a minute, they actually ended up on this completely other planet that they knew nothing about, and the planet has these very weird properties. And there's a time warp. I mean, like,
Yeah.
what's next for these people? Black hole next for them for sure, because they should all buy lottery tickets, because the rapidity with which these extraordinary things happen to this one crew is off the charts. I do want to give a very big shout out to the very peak sci-fi ice planet aesthetic happening throughout this episode. I love Moonbase Alpha deeply and passionately. It is a gorgeous set, everything designed just to the inch. But we spend more time here on the ice planet than we do on Alpha, and probably more time in those sets than we do in pretty much any other visited set in this series. And it is awesome. And it's partly awesome because it looks so homemade. But this is like right up there with, think about Logan's Run when they encounter Box, and you have this contrast of literally cold and dangerous, ice and snow, but also the cool aesthetic of like 70s sci-fi tech, a computer wall, those amazing looking chandeliers of all the kind of like chrome tubes hanging above them. Like, it is gorgeous, and that is an aesthetic that I want to come back. Of course, again, mix it up with animal skins. Gotta have that too. Like, it's weird and dangerous, and also sci-fi, and also sexy. So they nailed that. Go to the exterior, they did not so much. It just looks like shaving cream.
Yeah, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah,
there is a lot of it. Yeah.
Took Martin Landau's skin off, apparently.
My first note for the full set was, and I mean this as a compliment, it just looked like the perfect place for a B-52s video. Somehow.
Yes.
Yes. Maybe that's sort of the aesthetic, what the girl from Ipanema goes to Greenland. That would make sense. Something like that.
Yes. I love that.
It made me kind of jealous. Like I want it to be cold outside, and I want to be in there. And that's
right.
Best sci-fi design makes you kind of wish you were, even if it's dangerous, kind of makes you wish that you could visit the place. So
I mean, like, I've always wanted a room in my house, if it's a room or like a basement room that's sort of like a cool, maybe not a tiki bar room, but just kind of, your classic sort of man cave, batch pad, whatever. But then I looked at this and I was like, oh no, that's next level. That's the room right there.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I guess I take Elvis's jungle room as a second. That was fun.
Sure. Yeah, that would work. That would be fine.
So this is something that always, I don't know if irks is the right word, but we have run across a lot of people who know what Earth is lately. Do you guys think that there's such a thing as just a current through space at this point? Because we've had Collision Course, there was a woman who claimed to know that they were coming. Mm-hmm. And these guys pretty much were expecting, psychic Jack Shrapnel was Jack Tanner. Psychic Jack Tanner knew that the moon was coming for 800 years.
I don't,
the last sunset, the aliens there, they knew what Earthlings were, and they avoided them. So it's a weird thing where I feel like everyone knows they're coming. So it's just strange.
You might,
Matt, I think
stupid, but there will be a bit of an explanation in the last episode of season 1.
Oh, okay, cool. I love that.
I mean, Matt, I think that goes back to that whole, that metaphysical current that runs through this entire series. And we talked about it in Black Sun, which is just like, here is this dangerous phenomenon that destroys everything in its path, but Alpha special. There is this guiding force, and that might be a little too much fi in my sci-fi,
Yeah.
but I think it works for this series.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
part
Matt
of the
and I
charm of
disagree
this,
on Interstellar. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
We disagree on the black hole. The black hole in Interstellar pisses me off. The rest of it, I mean, I like the look and everything, and the
Yeah.
earlier part of the movie, but that one part, it's like, man, that's convenient. But sorry, go
Right.
ahead, Matt. You had
Right.
something relevant to say.
yeah, I guess a big part of the charm of Space 99 in general, and to the fact that people still want to have their own physical eagles and that sort of thing, is it is basically like a play set, and sometimes it's kind of weirdly charming. Like, it's, again, Interstellar is very matter of fact, practical looking spaceships and stuff. Like, that's pretty much like the best guess for what we could do at this time, how it would end up. Space 99's got like 2D decals for their control panels. These are toys we're playing with, and when you're playing with toys, sometimes your imagination just gets a little out there and or stupid.
Well, they're literally toys that I'm jealous that I wish I had, because I mean, I'm in a Facebook group of old toy stuff, and there was a toy I'd completely forgotten about that was like a Corvette where you flip up the compartment and give it commands, and you can program it to drive. Just, you have to program it to do all the directions, and then it executes the commands in order, which I had completely forgotten about. That it's a ridiculous idea, but it was achievable in 1980 or 75 or whenever that came out.
That's awesome.
But it looked like something from Moonbase Alpha, the control panel.
John, I remember hearing your great white whale of toy collecting is what the Vol Star Trek play set from the mid-70s.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mission to Gamma 6, made by Mego, got the little glove in there as like a creature coming out of the rock, and it's very clearly based on the Apple, but just no adherence to any of how that episode actually played out, or what the characters looked like, or anything. It's just like, no, we're Mego, and we need to take all these random parts and throw them together. But as long as we're talking about white whale toy sets, I mean, look, Space 1999, you had the giant, there were many Eagle models, but you had the giant 24-inch, was it 24, or was it, might have been bigger than that, pushing 30-inch, that came with the figures. But the problem is that was partly made of styrofoam, so it would come apart, and it's hard to get a complete set nowadays. And then he had a Moonbase Alpha set, very much like the Star Trek bridge set with the vinyl walls, but then I believe the compost that's in there is light up, and I mean, primo stuff, made for the tall, like the 8-inch figures. So there's still a lot of 1999 stuff that I would gladly display in my collection.
Yeah, the closest thing I have to that is I managed to score an Astrolight set. You familiar with those? Like the Hasbro Astrolight, where it's like translucent little futuristic construction set. That's you really can't do much with it except for build just the thing, but it's pretty cool looking, and it has a color wheel on it.
That's awesome.
A rotating color wheel with a light bulb. So
yes,
it looks fiber optic, but it's just a very primitive version of that. But
it's not. Right.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Absolutely.
I got lucky. A guy wanted to unload it for cheap at a toy convention. It's like, I'll take that. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I got fully motivated by the toys once. When I was maybe 6 years old, I was taking swim lessons at the YMCA, and the last thing was to do a dive off the board. And I'm perfectly happy to jump into water, but as far as doing a proper dive, I still can't do it. So I'm not going to do it. My dad's like, if you could do the dive, I'll get you Castle Grayskull. Right in the water.
Yep. So, I would too. I couldn't even swim when I was a kid, and I'd still have done that for Castle Grayskull.
And I haven't been able to do a dive since. As an adult, I've never been able to do like a head first dive. Like even
Just
from
don't
a
have the
diving
proper
board.
motivation, clearly.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
I'm gonna be like the elderly people from the Adult Swim bumpers learning how to swim like 20 years from now, probably.
I was
Nice.
we were talking a little earlier about how Dr. Blessed, I already forgot his name again. Sorry.
Dr.
Roland?
Roland.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Dr. Brian Blessed.
I almost got it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good
Yeah.
enough. Like, yeah, he's not mustache twirling evil while he's still chewing up the scenery. But I was thinking this is a nice early version of sci-fi gaslighting. Like as he's
Mm.
breaking all the communications and telling, well, I'm sure we'll get them later, blah blah blah. Because I'm thinking something like some of the season one Trek episodes where there's still a little mustache twirly, but this guy is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
chill in lying to them, very magnanimous in lying to them. So I was like, this is some first rate sci-fi gaslighting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that about it because it was maybe a little ridiculous that Dr. Russell basically says to Koenig that you have to trust him because I trust him and you have to trust me because I'm the doctor on your staff, which doesn't actually make sense. But
Right.
I've been complaining, John, a lot about how Koenig seems to know everything, and that's a lot of the writing on this show. And this thankfully
Yeah.
is pretty light on that, even though he does know. He
It's very
knows what to
easy
do.
to agree with him.
Yeah, the weird
Yes.
thing is that
Yeah.
people are not agreeing with him, but at the same time,
That is what's so strange. Like, it's a very short distance for Russell and Bergman to be, for all intents, crash landed, being held captive, seeing what's going on around them, and like, oh, no, this seems fine. We should really seriously consider this. I look, as much as I still love that the look of that ice cave that they have carved out for themselves, pretty much in any case in a sci-fi show, sci-fi scenario, where the choice is like, abandon your really cool technology that has worked for you very well, and then just go settle on this planet where it's, to coin a phrase, primitive as can be, that is always the wrong choice. We've been presented with that option in Star Trek many a time, Galactica more than a few times, because, let's face it, they were looking for a home. And it's like, no, you guys, you've actually got it really good with your cool spaceships and ray guns and, clocks everywhere. If you live on Moonbase Alpha, places are lousy with clocks everywhere.
The big strike against going to Thule is they cannot rock their blue bath towels on Thule. I think it's too cold for
No,
them.
exactly.
No, dude, but inside they could, but that didn't happen.
Still
this
looked a
episode
little
for some
cold to
reason.
do it there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's not a blue
Maybe you're
bathtub
right.
towel place. I mean, again, last sunset they were out within minutes and blue bath towels. So.
Yes,
I think it was
exactly.
seconds actually.
Yeah, minutes. At first they got wet in their Alphan suits. I made a note of that, and then they got into the bath towels. So no bath towels in this episode. I did
That was
notice
after they let themselves get gassed by oxygen.
the flight suits changed in this episode. I didn't know if it was like blue because we're going
those
to a
are
cold
nice.
place. Yeah,
those
are
rad.
really
Yeah.
nice. I appreciated that. I didn't see any notes about where those came from or if we're going to see them again, but
I just have a knockoff.
Doesn't matter, man.
I have a knockoff orange one I should wear. Like when BC was on here with his Alphan shirt, right? I got like a nice orange flight suit, but I'm like, I don't have a blue one, so I might have waited too long. It's at work. I keep it at work.
I would say a show like this, it doesn't matter when they change the costumes, because this is the only show I can think of where the costume designer gets like a top bill credit. Moonbase Alpha costumes by Rudy Gernreich, and he was a master. And it shows you where Sylvia Anderson's head was, which is, yeah, we got this space show, but let's go get a great designer and let's really make this look cool. And if he or she says we're going to change the color of the spacesuits by episode 14, yes, do it. Here's 100,000 pounds, go do it. And we'll see every penny of that on the screen.
I think that's a good investment that's not done enough, because there are a couple of movies you guys may agree or disagree, but specifically Bram Stoker's Dracula and The Fifth Element had legendary
Ooh,
costume design, and those movies
yes.
are pretty good, but I think they're elevated beyond pretty good just by how cool everything looks. Like I can still
Yep.
picture everything from Fifth Element in my head, like I'm
Yep.
watching it.
Agreed.
I mean, that's part of
Agreed.
where this show sits, right? I mean, it looks vintage for sure, but it still looks really good. And as much as I think we all
Yeah.
love Star Trek, if you're especially
Mhm.
if you're watching the original effects, which I usually do, to
Yeah.
be honest, um,
Yeah.
some of them don't
Yeah.
look good. Whereas I can't
Yeah.
think of a
That's
particularly
true.
bad effect on this show. Something where I was just like,
Well,
oh
there's, I mean, if you count seeing the wires, but I kind of don't.
no,
I
I
don't know if
don't.
it's just
Yeah.
that CGI
Yeah.
has made me so bitter that I just want to see the wires. Maybe
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
entirely possible.
I mean, I think we saw
And
some
all the
wires
stuff
on
with the eagle in
Thunderbirds.
this looked great. Yeah. Everything in
Yeah.
this episode of the eagle looked terrific. The snow shots, very cool. I mean, there's some where, yeah, the scale, kind of the gravity, where there's like a lift off and it kind of slams back down. You go like, okay, that's a model, but it's still a really excellent model. It just all looks so good.
It was nice to see the
Yep.
eagle like make a normal landing on an alien planet for once and not like crash into it or
Right.
float above it or something.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So,
Maybe they got that out of their system and they're not going to destroy any more of them.
well,
We'll
after
see.
Never
Guardian of
again. There will
Kiri's
never be
weird
another
We're
floating
crash
done.
eagle, how do you top that?
You know, we had not long ago, what was it Alpha Child, where we had three of them in direct combat. None of them got blown up. That was incredible.
Yeah, but they all hit the
shot.
ground
They
pretty
shot.
hard.
Yeah, they did all hit the ground, but they didn't. They didn't get destroyed. But you know, they
Um,
had.
I'm going to throw out the general question in a moment, but any
Mhm.
random observations you guys like to make that we haven't gotten to?
Hmm.
I guess I just
I
wrote
love
Alan
this.
needs a tauntaun to sleep in as he's out in the blizzard.
This
I mean,
this
to me, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say this Brian Blessed felt like he was channeling Matt Berry from the future, and Jack Shrapnel felt like he was channeling Nick Cage from the future. So I was very happy with this. That's about it for me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think we hit the most important observations here throughout. I do think that the for all the expense on costumes, talent, um, that incredible set, when it came to set dressing, like, okay, I think the peak items, obviously that kind of lounge area in the central part of that set where you have the chandeliers above, that looked great. I think Dr. Rowland's desk and that computer bank, I think the computer bank looks great because it essentially is what they have on Alpha. That's fine. That's just a great, timeless, cool looking design. Um, I love the very Space 1999 look of like you have a desk and then you have a single giant microphone on there to indicate that that is where you do communications. Kind of funny because I like obviously the three of us, yeah, we're doing a show, we're talking into mics, but literally all around you at any given time between your computer, a tablet, a phone, like there's mics just everywhere built into everything. So, it's kind of funny to think in the future you need a giant dedicated thing. And the other very Space 1999 look of having a monitor on said desk with a giant microphone, but the monitor always cheated out toward the camera so the audience can see what's going on. The person using the desk does not need to see what's on that monitor, but everybody in the audience definitely does. So those are some real highlights of the look. I think they skimped when it came to the science lab because I swear to you, those were erector set pieces that were getting destroyed on at least one of those tables. And it's just like, okay, we gave up when it came to doing the actual science in this room. Oh, and the other thing that was just very strange and kind of irked me a bit was the constant use of the phrase hot liquid. These are humans who are on Ultima Thule. They can say water. They can say drinks. They can say, and they kept referring like he comes in, Dr. Roland comes in right after they found Russell and Koenig and Bergman, and he's like, get animal skins and get hot liquid. Like, what? That could be anything. What do you just any hot liquid like that? And then they say it again and again and again throughout the episode, and it really was strange.
It could be a
They couldn't
sociological thing. Like 400 years ago, someone said as a joke, like we might say, like adult libations. And, 200 years after that, it stopped being funny and everyone just starts saying it as a matter of course.
Right.
Given
Yeah,
hundreds
there's
of years in a
definitely-
closed community, I could see where their slang, kind of adapts and changes over time.
It was so strange.
Yeah.
Like, do you mean just boil some water? Do you mean tea? Do we still have tea? It's been 800 years. Probably we went through all the tea rations that we brought with us. So
I mean, it's
yeah.
like, hey, like, when my daughter is an infant, she'd be like boom boom when she was in water, and every once in a while it's like, hey, y'all want some boom boom? Some of
Yeah,
this
and
stuff
see-
sticks.
I think of Boom Boom, I think of something else. Really.
I think
Yeah,
of the X-Men character. What are you thinking of something different?
Wait, what did the X-Men character Boom Boom do?
She threw little balls of energy that blew up.
Okay, I mean, I
thought they all did that.
Okay.
I thought every single one of them did that.
Yeah, but she usually did it as
Yeah,
practical jokes.
Oh, okay.
I can't keep all the X-Men in my head at the same time.
She was introduced as kind of like a mid-'80s Madonna-esque character in the late '80s. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I'm just revealing that I've read way too many X-Men comic books. Okay.
No, I mean there's nothing wrong with that. You're well read. That's you read the material.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
honestly embarrassed at how few comic books I've read, for whatever that's worth. I'm sure someone's listening and rolling their eyes at that.
She's introduced in issue 12 of X Factor. There, I just made it worse.
Wow. Okay.
Oh my God. Wow.
I'm just
Wow.
surprised.
I don't think that's any nerdier than knowing what the names of all the football players are on the football team,
I had
which I
trouble.
also don't know.
I had trouble remembering Dr. Roland too. Now I'm just thinking of the Chemical Brothers. So
Yeah.
that's my mnemonic trick now for not getting the name wrong again.
I know a little bit about most things, and I don't know everything about anything.
Okay.
Mm.
That sounds cool.
That's
Same.
it.
I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's
Dabbler of all trades.
mm,
That sounds
let's
bad.
let's work out what percentage of this episode is existential dread and what is sci-fi fun. I don't know. Any volunteers for firsties?
Jeez, man, this to me was 100% fun. I'm sorry. I wasn't dreading anything because I just I didn't think anything sinister was going to happen. And
Not with the
sort of the
Shakespearean
only thing-
overlay.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't really feeling the tragedy, but maybe I was just so entertained that I was distracted into not feeling any dread.
Okay. I worked a little more dread into this. I guess, yeah, a lot of sci-fi fun. The ice caves, just right there. That's a good 40% sci-fi fun, no
Yeah.
problem. I guess the idea of like settling onto a garbage planet and I was thinking like 40% dread through most of the episode, and then the money shot of Dr. Roland exiting the atmosphere. I'll give another 20% for that, because the idea you can never leave, and
he was smoking, that was amazing that he was smoking.
That was great.
His corpse was smoking.
So cool.
Also,
so cool.
I
should
do
all be so lucky.
Yeah, I hope I go out like that.
I do the Twilight Zone
with some
podcast.
flesh.
So on the Twilight Zone podcast, one of the things is like we find it most bleak when it's like, how do the characters go on after this? And I kind of feel that for the remaining inhabitants of Thule. It's like, wow, just are they just going to live another 880 years? I guess not being lobotomized anymore, but still just like you're stuck in your ice cave forever. You're not going to die. You're not going to reproduce. Have fun. That's pretty dready to me. Being stuck in one place dreads me out. I was lucky in 2020. I never really got locked down. I would have gone nuts.
Yeah, I feel like they have each other, and maybe that's again that I'm just feeling biased because I've seen so many episodes of the show where there are just two people on a planet or one person on a planet alone, or we don't know who's on the planet. That at least it felt like a community, which we haven't gotten a whole lot of. We
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
Earthbound, we had that, what, 6 people on a ship, and then they accidentally killed one of them, so there are 5 now.
I'm painted
That's
a
kind
little
of
bit by
sad.
this. Of course, both of you have been watching Star Trek Voyager, and I thought of the Thaw several times. Great actor
Ooh,
and control of a whole bunch of people, destroying
yeah.
some of them at times. And I think
Nice.
that's a very
Nice.
high existential dread episode of Voyager, and it might be influencing my feeling on this episode because,
Uh,
Dr. Roland is not as disturbing as Michael McKean's clown, but he's
right,
doing
right.
kind of the same sort of thing and right, being the authority of this cloistered community. So
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think this episode, it cranks up the sci-fi fun. Yes. I mean, you're easily above 90% on that. And then the existential dread part of it, see, that's where it's very interesting, because you do have this horror element, the horror of living forever in this one place, the horror of maybe being lobotomized, but also living forever in that place. And then the ethical existential choice, which, look, we all know how it has to end. We know it wasn't a real choice, but like those moments of the Alphans trying to decide, like, oh, this is great, we should stay, we should figure it out, this is a mystery. That's the kind of thing that Star Trek would just do the whole episode about. And this is just kind of like shoehorned in there to create a little drama, a little conflict between our hero characters. Um, so I feel like that element is there, but it isn't fully realized. So the sci-fi fun, yeah, 90+%. The existential dread, we're definitely above 50%. I think we're maybe upwards of 60-70% on that. And that, though, that's kind of, I don't know if we have a formal wrap up here, but that's sort of like in the mission log sense of things. Does it hold up? Where does this stand for me? um, I kept thinking that, to me, my comparison piece, I've always said that Star Trek V is an extremely poorly produced version of a good movie. Like, there is a good movie just dying to get out of there, and just a story that is dying to be told. And yet it can't help but just get screwed up at every turn by every bad decision being made in the production. This episode of 1999, I think, is an exceptionally well-produced piece of TV. I think the writing is great. I think the acting is great. There's a care about the set pieces, the action, the editing always is good on this. There's so much going for it. It is an extremely well-produced version of a not really great story. And I think because it is so well produced, that helps us to sort of like just glide right past the holes in this, because I want to know more. I want to know more about this expedition. I want to know more about these characters. I want to know more about this time warp. I want to know more about this choice. I want to know more about all of these things that are very much a concern of the episode, but don't get enough attention. And even at the end, um, I don't feel like everything just needs to be kind of wrapped up and handed to me. But I thought it was so intriguing that at the end, don't hold me to actually quote it verbatim because I can't remember it at all. But in Commander Koenig's kind of, log line at the very end, asking, posing the question to the audience, if immortality is a curse, or is that what gives life meaning? Or does it only give life meaning to you if death is on the table? And that was an intriguing idea, because every other sci-fi story that deals with the idea of immortality basically tells us, no, immortality would be a curse. Immortality would be a nightmare. This is one of the few times that I thought posed a very good question to say, well, yeah, we think that because we know we're going to die. But if we knew that we weren't going to die, would it still pose the same influence on our lives? Would it actually give life meaning? So I thought that these were great ideas, but there wasn't another voice to step in. There wasn't a Victor Bergman to come in and say, ooh, hey, let's explore that a little bit. you know, and that is the kind of thing that you would probably, certainly in modern Trek, you would spend a whole episode on.
Let's not forget this is impotent immortality, which doesn't sound so great. They're never going to grow. They're never going to. Their society's never going to develop that much, because they're never going to have a new mind in there. Which is why they want the Alphans, I'm sure. But
well, and it is, you know, again, since he's not the mustache twirling victim, that is what drives Dr. Rowland's work. It's like, if we can just figure out the one thing that is the difference in who we were before and who we are now, we can solve this and we can get out. Now, of course, it gets twisted, but you know, his premise is an understandable one. You know, let's crack this so we can go.
I think I've shown this to both you, but I also just keep thinking of my potato chips here. Death mix.
Nice.
No,
oh
no
my
death,
God.
no death, no life.
That. Yeah, I think you showed me that, maybe, or I saw it somewhere.
Whoa.
No death,
extremely
no life.
spicy.
That's awesome.
Be careful, they killed that kid. That one.
They
chip.
did. Yeah, I will let you tell me about it.
It was a one chip challenge where you buy a box with just one chip that's super spicy, and a kid ate one and died. It was very sad, but it's also the kind of thing that kids will be like, hey, did you hear about that kid who died? You know, it's like the playground thing.
Pop rocks.
Like now I hear the playground
Pop
stories on the internet. Yeah, pretty much.
It killed Mikey from the Life cereal commercial.
But it's so interesting to me that this episode does really have a ton of ideas, and the last episode, Collision Course, had very few ideas, and you know,
though when we talked to Earl, your compadre on Last Sons, and he was also noting there's like 5 different episodes of ideas here, so they are maybe I don't know if it's because of the production run or what, but maybe the writer's room is just like, here, let's shoehorn this in as well. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about 1999 is that it is very ambitious at every turn. You know, it is ambitious when it comes to the actors. It's ambitious when it comes to the look and the feel of the show. And it's ambitious. It set out to be a show that would explore ideas in a thoughtful adult way. You know, their inspiration was 2001. And the way that Star Trek looked at the sci-fi that came before it and said, no, we need to do something thoughtful that appeals to adults and isn't just, you know, sci-fi matinee fare for kids. 1999, 10 years later, is doing essentially the same thing. And how can we take that to yet another level and be really thoughtful and cerebral? But as we know, on TV, that doesn't always work out.
Well, one of the catches we learned, Mark's trivia early on, is what by episode 3, they're having to send scripts to New York City and have them sent back to be checked by the brass. And that's definitely going to put a crimp in your making additional drafts and such.
Absolutely.
One of those guys, ITC New York, just had a little weird bugaboo about everything and decided he was going to personally supervise things, and maybe the show is getting better over the time of the production run, mostly because maybe the guy got tired of editing so much, because there were a few early on that were kind of like, oh, suddenly lady has 2 brains in her head at the same time, that's kind of ridiculous. But as an aside, the next episode we'll see with these writers is the Infernal Machine, which we'll have Leo McKern from The Prisoner wearing the wig, the same wig.
The wig.
The famous wig that was worn by both Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and also Joan Collins.
Joan Collins, excuse me.
And David Tomlin will be directing, so that should be fun.
Yep. Luke Grade has friends with people, producers, and wigs.
Yeah, that's how the Muppet Show got made, dude. that's how the Muppet Show has a list of talent that it is unmatched, probably.
That's how the Muppet Sausage is
Tonight
made.
Show. Love it.
I guess we'll wind it down, but John, I guess you've got mission log back on track now that the strike is finished.
Yeah. I'm so glad that Earl and Norman were able to do Genealogy, and that show is that is a gem, and that will move to its own feed in January. And in the meantime, we'll be doing double duty. We'll be releasing 2 episodes in the feed a week, one of Genealogy, one of Mission Log, at least for a few weeks. But Mission Log will be back as of Thanksgiving Day. So we're breaking our usual tradition of taking Thanksgiving off because we've got a couple episodes in the can. And that'll come out, Thanksgiving Day. And then, second start to the right, straight on till morning.
Nice. I accidentally blew past you guys by like 2.5 seasons because those Borg Conundrum episodes are pretty addictive. I gotta say.
Very true, very true.
That show gets just like potato chips after about season 3.5.
For real.
Yeah. I could finally watch Picard, but I know everybody wants me to finally watch that.
There you go.
Years,
Mission Log will be back. Mission Log will be back. Podcast.roddenberry.com. There you go.
As for this one, we're podcast 1999 on Facebook at least.
I'm gonna I'll get us on Mastodon or something because X doesn't work.
I was about to say.
I mean, X is worse than ever now.
Supposed to get off X. I think it
may be racist for us to even say X out loud.
I think so.
Anyway, we're not there. Don't look for us there. Do look for us at Facebook and maybe Mastodon. Do look for us if you want to support us on Patreon a bit. We are at Podcastius, where we also talk about really good films and really bad films on Films and Filth. The Twilight Zone is before mentioned on Time Enough Podcast. And some video game ones. Luke Loves Pokemon for the Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report for Zelda, and the Game Show for gamers gaming each other. Okay. I think I got through that.
All right.
Now I'm gonna go out into the ice planet now, I guess. Actually, it's warmed up a little bit. It's not that bad. In fact, I think I'll turn my heater off. But I'll be in full ice planet mode in a month for sure. Around here.
Nice.
Well, all I can say is, damn it, I should have put a star on this line.
Okay.
Never.
You would have put a star on never.
No, I just slipped into that because I couldn't find a hot Shakespeare-ish line. Shakespeare-esque.
Oh no, damned spot. That just came to mind. I don't know.
That's a good one.
Good job.
Get those spots out, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah, so if you're cool to do this again in 24 hours, I already watched The Love Guru. Sorry. I mean, sorry to you.
Yeah, I just
are you apologizing to me? I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, I feel sorry for you too then, yeah. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it later tonight. I just marked it in my watch list. So yeah,
I did a double feature. I watched the last 30 minutes of The Love Guru and then watched The Killer. So that was kind of a weird juxtaposition of movies.
Interesting. Okay.
Is it good?
Okay.
I heard it was bad.
I saw a bunch of reviews and I almost do I want to watch it? I was like, let's go for it. Actually, I liked it quite well. I thought it was good. I like Fassbender. Cool. That probably helps. But
oh yeah, me too. Maybe I should just
because I went in thinking, because the review's like, oh, nothing happens for the first 20 minutes, which is technically true, but it's just like, yeah, I liked it. So I went in expecting, oh God. I did watch some of Mank and I was one of the people that couldn't get through it because it's digital. It's like digital 40s. Like the sound they did perfectly, but the visual is like, how is the black and white burning my eyes out,
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah, I'm not a big fan of. I'm trying to think of what else did that. There's something recently where it was like black and white, but it looked wrong.
I might go back and try it again. Also, it's Gary Oldman in a bed for an hour, so you got to get through that, which can be good. So I do want to get back to it, but yeah, when I watched about 15 minutes and probably had to do like 8 podcasts after it, never got back to it. But now I've watched The Killer like in one sitting, Mark. I watched it in one sitting.
Wow. Way to go.
A miracle for me.
I didn't even watch this episode of Space 1999 in one sitting.
I think I took a 10-minute break to go do something, but I mean, I basically did watch in one sitting. It was on pause. I came back, unpaused it. So I did see a lot of bad reviews, but I'm gonna give my my thumb up to the killer. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I
Okay.
really want to see Divinity, which is a black and white film that just came out. That's like Steven Soderbergh produced, and everyone. There have been a lot of reviews that say this is the strangest thing I've ever seen in a movie theater.
And I'll finally get to
It's kind of
Oppenheimer
like
soon. I'll get to Oppenheimer soon because
Yeah,
it was
there we go.
still
pretty
not
good.
released in Japan. Still not released in
Yeah.
Japan.
Well, yeah.
You'll just have to
Shocking.
get it
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, and it's not like ha ha ha. We'll get Japan. You know, it's not. It's not.
I'm sure it's
You
not,
won't
but
be
you know,
offended or anything.
people. I think the thing that really sealed it was Barbenheimer. Like that was the thing that actually offended the Japanese. They're no, don't mix it in with that, and that really got them going.
Yeah.
Before that, it wasn't such a thing. But
Well,
okay, I'll catch y'all in 24 because
All right,
I'm ready to go to
All right.
work. So
see you then. All right.
Good to
Have a
see
good
you.
day at work.
what up?
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Be good,
Thanks
guys.
for joining us, John.